So in the 80s, I was in college, and there was a rabbi who had been recently ordained from the seminary. His name was Rabbi Alan Liu. May his memory remain for a blessing. I had the opportunity after I was ordained, and I was going to what we commonly refer to as rabbi camp, where we were able to study with some of the great thinkers from around the world who were brought in. Rabbi Alan Liu was one of those people because he had an expertise in kind of the meditative practice of Eastern religion and applied it most beautifully to Judaism, with the understanding that Judaism has always adopted from the culture around it, and that there was this ability to overlay some of Jewish theology with other practice. And he wrote an incredible book called This Is Real and You're Completely Unprepared. And there couldn't be a more apt title for a book that could come out right now, and that is This Is Real and You Are Completely Unprepared. Now, I just want you to know as an aside, we pivoted as quickly as we possibly could. We continued to maintain as much programming as possible. We continued to stream services. We continued to hold religious school. We continued to have the ECC, the Early Childhood Center. We pivoted, I think, extraordinarily well. And of course, there are so many people to thank for that. And if I were to start with the list of people we should thank, invariably I'll leave someone out, so I apologize for not naming everyone individually, but we were able to, because of the strength of our community, because of the clarity of our vision, we were able to pivot from a contact community to a distant community. But Rabbi Alan Liu in his book says there are times in life when we're caught utterly unprepared. A death in the family, the end of a relationship. He wrote in the 80s, a health crisis. These are the times when the solid ground we thought we stood on disappears beneath our feet, leaving us reeling and heartbroken, and we stumble back to our faith. So I say, this is real. This is scary. This is dangerous, the world in which we live right now. But we're not foreign to dangerous living. We're a Jewish people who have always felt some bit of scare that there are real dangers about. We as a Jewish community have often felt that this could be our last. And whether it's because of anti-Semitism or because of disease, the Jewish people understand this is real, and our tradition has been preparing us for this moment, and now we will sustain our belief. This week's Parsha, Tazria Metaora. It's a double portion. I'm not sure if it's a double portion in order to keep our calendar on cycle, or if it's a double portion because the content of these two Parshiot are somewhat difficult to get through. Tazria Metaora essentially deals with the variety of skin ailments that a person might be inflicted with. And there is an amazing moment, one that we see delineated in our lives today, as we hear time and time again reported from all sectors of the society that we ought to let medical doctors make certain decisions, politicians make other decisions, and that never the two shall meet. But one ought to. As we've learned in our society today, they ought to work collaboratively. But that's not how it worked in the ancient world. In this week's Parsha, we see that the religious leader was also the medical professional. He had seen it so many times that he was able to identify the variety of different illnesses. I know I spend a lot of my time, not during this circumstance, but other times of the year, in hospitals. I pick up the lingo: arterial lateral sclerosis, ALS, cardiac infarction. I'm beginning to learn the language of what it means to be in the medical profession, but I'm not a doctor. Though I'm pretty sure my mother would have wanted me to be. That's a joke. But I'm not a doctor. I'm only a religious leader. But in the ancient world, it was the Kohen's job. It was the priest's job to identify illness and determine whether or not the person ought to be quarantined or they could remain in the community because they weren't contagious. But if the person was quarantined, it was the religious leader's obligation to say that they are now free to go out. And you can hear the parallels so easily today. We'll get to it in just a moment. But the Parsha says, the Kohen Gadol says it's okay to go out. You can imagine what it feels like to be the quarantined individual who has been separated from society and all of the suspicion that goes with that. We all have this sense of illness and the fear that we have of it. And what do we think of the person who contracted it? And so the very last stage is to bring that person out and have the public leader say there's nothing wrong with this person. This person has survived and they are okay and they should be fully integrated into society once again. As we talk about this, and that is return to normal, how do we do it? There has to be a proclamation at some point where somebody says it's okay now. And then we have in this week's Parsha this incredible statement. Adam ki yeh be'or b'saro se'et o sapachat o vaheret vaya be'or b'saro l'neged tzarat. That if the person was suffering from some sort of skin disease, of which it lists a few, v'huvay la kohen, he is brought to the kohen. O el chad mi banav kohanim, and he is brought to the kohen or to one of his children, also kohanim. And that's where the Kohen makes the determination. And I learned this week from Rabbi Annie Tucker, this beautiful Meshech Chochmah, the Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, writing in the late 19th century in Eastern Europe. The Meshech Chochmah offers this really, really interesting moment in which it says, V'huvala Kohen, they were brought to the Kohen. And the Meshech Chochmah thinks to himself, how dangerous could that be for the Kohen? How dangerous could it be that the Kohen would come into contact with somebody who's potentially contagious? And of course, you can't help but think to yourself, right? About our healthcare professionals. We have a healthcare professional in our congregation who took ill because he was in close contact, and thank God he's okay today. My heart, my love, my strength, my solidarity is with all of you. But the Meshech Chochmah says he should be brought to the priest. And then he says, Hu misitrei Torah. This is one of the magnificent mysteries of the Torah. That you could bring a potentially contagious person suffering from what might be a life-threatening illness to the Kohen Gadol, to the high priest, or to any one of his sons, and potentially infect the greatest leader in the Jewish people. And you can imagine what kind of chaos that would inflict if the Kohen Gadol came down with it. Can you imagine an entire country in which a prime minister gets ill and almost dies from the disease? How that can rock an entire country, maybe even an entire continent. We watched as the Prime Minister of England was hospitalized. And the Meshech Chochmah says, Omnam yesh lomar deheina negaim hi machala hamidbeket. It's possible that in treating the disease, the person who is giving the remedy will be inflicted himself or herself. It's fraught with danger. V'hit askut bo hu inyan misukan. That this is in fact an endeavor of extraordinary dangers. Of it tzarich lazeh hashgacha niflat pratutiot. That in fact that person is protected by the divine, says the Meshech Chochmah. The doctor, therefore, needs special divine protection to be immune to it, says the Meshech Chochmah. Wouldn't it be great if all of our superheroes had the superpower of immunity? If the superheroes that we have on the front lines, whether they be cashiers in the supermarket or any other part of the food supply chain, or they be doctors or nurses or other technicians in the hospitals, be they orderlies or laundry people, wouldn't it be great if they had this superpower that the Meshech Chochmah talks about, and that is the superpower of immunity? Wouldn't it be great if they were immune? But you know it's not like that. But I want to take this one step further and suggest to you that there's no question in our mind that the high priest wasn't immune to disease, illness, and death. Just a few weeks ago, we saw about the death of the two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. They too did something, were in a place that was extremely dangerous, and they died. We have moments in our history in which the Jewish people are told to come close, but not too close, because too close is too dangerous. When the Jewish people are told at Sinai to prepare themselves for the revelation of the Torah, they're told to clean themselves, prepare themselves for 3 days. They're close to the mountain, but don't touch it, because you can't survive. When the Jewish people see the face of God, they're so overwhelmed by it. They say, Moses, you be the intermediary, because we're too afraid if you get too close, you could die. It's amazing when you think about these two juxtaposed to each other. The holiness that's so great that you'll be overwhelmed by it and you can't survive. And the disease, the difficulty, and the challenge of being so low that you can't survive. We're now at ground zero of illness in our society, and we are afraid of death. And at one point in Jewish history, we were at ground zero of holiness, and we were afraid. And so it suggests to us the most important and final lesson this morning, and that is, there is extraordinary holiness at this moment. They're not separate. Ground zero of illness and ground zero of holiness are exactly the same, our tradition's teaching us, that there is extraordinary holiness in this moment. We have to be careful. We have to do our best to care for ourselves and for those around us, but recognize that we are now seeing the value of human life amplified to a degree we've never seen it before. And in this moment, there is holiness. I told a story last night that I heard Andrew Cuomo tell us just yesterday on the news of a farmer in Kansas who sent him an N95 mask and asked him to please give it to a healthcare worker, a doctor, or a nurse. He said, I've kept 4 for myself, but I'm giving 1 to you for a healthcare professional. That's all I've got is just 5. I keep 4 for myself and I'll give 1 to someone else. That's an understanding that we are in a moment of holiness that is fraught with illness, and an illness moment that is fraught with holiness. And we understand that we have the capacity to do something great for other people in this moment and elevate our holiness, our Kedusha. There's no question in my mind, but that we are right now a Kehillah Kedosha. Though we are dispersed, we are a holy congregation doing incredibly important work. I had a call this week from a member of the congregation who said, you know what, I've got small kids at home, but we're doing really, really well. If you want, I can go and deliver some groceries. If there's anybody who needs me to pick up some things at the supermarket, I believe I'm pretty healthy. It's possible I've already am immune. So if you want me to go pick up groceries, I will. We all have the ability to do something. Make a mask, make a joke, make a sign for your front door, leave a note on someone else's porch. We can do things because in this moment is an opportunity to let our holiness shine. I pray that we are able to come together again soon, b'mheira b'yameinu, quickly in our day, so that we can feel the holiness of each other and elevate our community even further. The lessons that we will have learned from this experience will abound. Our congregation will be better for it. Our people will be better for it. Our world will be better for it. Because we are standing truly on holy ground right now. Would that we would know it. Shabbat Shalom. I know that some of you may still be tuned in because you like the jokes. I first want to thank Max for sending me the first joke. He actually videotaped this joke and sent it to me, so I apologize. It's not going to be as good as his, but Max, if you're listening, I thank you very much for this joke. Joke is, what do you get when you combine an alligator with a vest? A vestigator. Okay, I think he told it better than I did. Anyways, I was able to go online this week. I thank Max. I wish that there were more Maxes out there who could really just help me and get me some good jokes. So what I did was I found what are referred to as the 10 best Jewish jokes that are out there. 10 best Jewish jokes. So of course you all have heard all of them. So this is just a reminder. You remember that very old joke about the guy sitting on the desert island with a friend of his and another friend, and they've been on the desert island for so long that they know all the jokes already, and so all they do is refer to a number, and then they start laughing. One guy says 12, and the other guy, the other guy says 15, right? And goes on and on, 12, and then the third guy decides he's going to jump in, and he goes 67, and there's silence, not a sound. And the guy's like, what's going on? I'm dumbfounded. Why are you not laughing? He says, because it's all in the delivery. Anyway, so these are I'm not going to do all 10, but I'll do as many until I get tired of doing it, right? So a group of 5 Jewish women are eating lunch at a busy cafe. Nervously, their waiter approaches the table and says, ladies, he says, is anything okay? You heard that one. Jewish man is shipwrecked. No, that's a stupid one. This is my synagogue. Never went on. All right, go ahead. 3 Jewish mothers are sitting on a bench arguing over which one of their sons loves them the most. The first one says, my son, he sends me flowers every Shabbos. The other one says, you call that love? Says the second mother, my son calls me every day. The third one says, that's nothing, says the third woman. My son is in therapy 5 days a week, and the whole time all he does is talk about me. We should have a laugh track here, I think. All right? Group of people standing on a subway platform, an American, a Russian, and an Israeli. Reporter approaches and says, excuse me, can I get your opinion on the meat shortage? The American says, what's a shortage? The Russian says, what's meat? The Israeli says, what's excuse me? Rabbi is harboring a secret. She's always wanted to try treif, to try ham, pork. One night, she drives across town to the furthest restaurant from her shul and orders an entire suckling pig. Just as the waiter sets down the full roast pig with an apple in its mouth, she sees a group of her congregants as they're walking over and watching her, mouths open in disbelief. The rabbi opens her eyes, says, so no, what kind of place is this? She says, you order an apple and this is how they serve it? That's a good one. elderly Jewish man, this is my father's favorite joke, an elderly Jewish man faints and is rushed to the nearest hospital. A nurse tucks him into bed and says, "Mr. Schwartzman, are you comfortable?" Schwartzman replies, "I make a living." A Jewish grandfather takes his children to the beach. They're playing in the sand when suddenly a massive wave comes and pulls the smallest grandson out into the water. Panicked, the grandfather prays to God, "Oh God, please bring him back. Please let him live." Suddenly, an even larger wave bursts out of the ocean, setting the little boy down right next to his grandfather's feet. He scoops him up into a hug. He stares up to the sky and says, "He had a hat." The last one. A yeshiva decides to start a crew team. But no matter how much they practice, they lose every single race. Eventually, they decide to send a boy out to a nearby prep school as a spy to watch their winning crew team and find out what their secret is. After a day of reconnaissance, the boy comes back. "Listen," he tells his teammates, "I learned how they do it. They have 8 guys rowing and only 1 guy screaming." All right. That's all I got for you this week. Have a great Shabbos. Have a wonderful week. If you need me, I'm around. Give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. If there's anything that I can do for you, please let me know. Remember, congregational meeting May 3rd at 10 o'clock. You have all the information. It's a virtual meeting. Hope that you'll be a part of that. And hopefully I'll see you sometime soon. Shabbat Shalom. All right, Andy, I'm out of here.